because we give meaning to things. We give meaning, we put labels on things that really don't have any labels, that really don't have any meaning. And this is not to say to live a nihilistic lifestyle or to become a pessimistic about everything. No, it's just to simply see the neutrality of this moment. See that the labels, the constructs, the ideas in your head that you place onto reality are not true. They're just beliefs. That's all they are. And of course, there's nothing wrong with these beliefs, but if you're able to see through them, you won't get caught in them. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the 43rd episode of the Conscious Cast. I'm your host, Cal, along with my other boy, Mr. Yeah, he's not here. All right, so yeah, it's just me today. We're rocking a nice solo episode. Without any further ado, let's get right into this bad boy. All right, guys, so lately I've been doing a lot of thinking, right? A lot of thinking, all right? And this thinking has primarily been about myself, right? And so I've said, and everyone pretty much knows this, no one thinks about yourself more than you, right? And so what are we thinking about? I want you to ask yourself, I'm going to ask you this question real quick. What do you, like, when you're thinking about yourself, what do you think about? What's the first thing that comes to mind? Like, who are you? Is it your characteristics? Like, what you look like? What you do, right? Those different types of things. Really our self-image, right? Like how we view ourselves, our identity, right? And so I've noticed within these past couple weeks, obviously like I'm very much into content creation, videography, just I have different types of passions that are very much out there in the public eye that people see, and I've noticed with this, when my passions, when my habits, when I see people, I've touched on this before, like I feel as though deep down within me, I feel this need to feel seen, right? And this is a natural human thing. Like we want to do things and receive recognition for it, right? But in my case, it's more so about being on social media. And I'm very and seeing how having individuals on social media see what I'm doing, right? And I'm not saying this is the driving force behind all of my content creation. No, I very much have a genuine passion for what I'm doing, right? Whether it be videography, whether it be self-improvement, the conscious cast, whether it be weightlifting, whatever, like I have a genuine passion. But deep down within me, it's more on my egoic side that I have this drive to be seen on social media, right? This drive to have others recognize what I'm doing, be like, wow, Cal's really influential. Cal's blah, 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 blah. Really, like, fuck off, right? Like all that type of shit, right? And so I've noticed with this, like, I've been thinking about myself a lot, right? Thinking about this self-image. And so with this self-image, it really isn't us, right? I've touched on this a lot in this podcast. It's one of the big messages I push. It's like, who are you really, right? Like, who are you beyond your thoughts? Who are you beyond the content of your mind, right? Because these are the big questions you got to ask yourself. And I've noticed there's this dissonance between who I think I am and who I actually am, right? So a lot of times I know who I actually am. And when I say I know, I really don't know. It's like this unknowable type of thing within your life. And I'll break it down real quick. It's pretty much just conscious awareness, right? And even placing those labels on it isn't enough to define it, right? But we believe we are the content of our mind, right? We believe that we are our thoughts, right? And so with this, I've noticed that I have been being like, okay, I'm going to be conscious of this moment, be conscious of my awareness, right? Be conscious of who I truly am, right? And just watch the content of my mind pass through, right? Watch Cal pass through. But I've noticed that, like I was saying before, there's this dissonance between what I believe and how I actually act, right? Because like any of you guys know, developing a habit that you want to integrate is very hard. So for me to constantly not fall into the trap of becoming unaware of who I truly am in every present moment is very hard to do. So sometimes I fall into the trap of continuously thinking. My mind goes on autopilot. Like I just fall back into the assumptions that I'm Cal, I'm a videographer, I do all these different types of things, right? But I'm not actually present in the fact that none of those things are actually who I am. I believe they're me, but I'm not actually them, right? And so To kind of break it down for people that are, having a hard time understanding this, I'll break it down real quick. All right. So just to preface this, because I know when I'm having this type of conversation, people are always like, what? You're not who you like. I'm not Cal. I'm not my name. I'm not the content of my life. So it really just comes down to, who were you before humanity, the world, told you who you were, right? And so if you think about that, right, before you developed a name, before you developed all these different types of characteristics, you were this unknowable, not this unknowable, pretty much this unlabeled type of, I guess you could say, entity, right? Not an object, but an individual, right? And you had no labels. You had no type of marks on you that defined who you were, right? And so how I refer to this, and what I suggest, is it is your conscious awareness, right? And so who we believe we are is based on beliefs, right? And they're able to change. It's not fixated, right? But who you actually are is unchanging, right? It's this unknowable force, right? Undefinable thing within you. It's your conscious awareness that is there before your brain develops, there before your identity develops, and it's who you really are, right? It's this force that is always there. It's this thing that is unchangeable, inarguable, objective, right? And it's not based on beliefs. You don't need to believe anything. It doesn't matter what religion, race, nationality, any types of labels you throw on this thing, it does not matter. It cannot, I guess you could say, whatever label you throw on it cannot really put it into that box of what it really is. And so on that basis, right, of after explaining that, who you really are beyond your thoughts, this conscious awareness that underlies all the content passing through your life, right? We mistaken who we think we are for who we actually are. And so I've said this once again, I believe that I am this videographer. I believe that I'm Cal. I believe that I'm this so-and-so, right? And when this happens, we enter a state of ego, right? We enter a state of this identity. And I want to preface this now. An identity is a very good thing, right? An identity helps you live a preferable life. But if you're not conscious of the identity, right? If you're not conscious that this thing is just an illusion, right? It's not really a real thing because it doesn't exist beyond your mind and it's dependent on you, right? It can lead to a lot of suffering, right? And it can lead to a lot of division, right? Rather than unification. And so with that, I've noticed that when it comes to pursuing areas of interest, pursuing areas that I care about a lot, and he is my friend. He's like one of my best friends. Tristan, my cousin as well. He said this beautifully in the intro to the last episode. He said, we compare ourselves to other people in areas that we feel most insecure about. And that was right on the money. 100% agree, right? And so when it comes to areas like videography, when it comes to areas like YouTube, content creation, weightlifting, right? These are the areas that I care about a lot in my life, right? Obviously self-improvement, all these different types of things. And when I'm in the gym or when I'm at work or when I'm on social media, I'll see other people that obviously have the same interests as me, and I'll take a step back and I'll begin to think about it. And I'll be like, what I'm doing versus what they're doing, right? And if I'm a lot of times, if I'm on the basis of falling into who I think I am, right, I'll begin to start comparing and seeing myself as more than or less than. And a lot of times it's less than, right? Because what you see on social media is a facade of what's going on in actual life. So you're going to see the best highlights of everything, right? You're most likely going to see the best types of whatever, the best, I would say, standards of whatever area you're going into, right? So for me, my max squat is like probably around 350, right? My deadlift is like 405. Fucking bench is like 215, right? Okay, numbers, pretty respectable, right? But if I go on social media and I see like probably on my timeline page, like a guy, like a 19-year-old, yeah, like Mikey Saturday, who I had on a couple episodes, deadlifting like 550 pounds. I'm going to be like, man, fuck, what am I doing with my life, dude? And I'll feel like way less than, right? And in the flip side of that, right? Let's just say for me, videography, right? Like I was saying before, I have a videography position here at CCSU, and I am the videographer for one of the departments, and I'll create social media content for them, right? I see it gets really good feedback. I see it gets, people are really liking it, which is good because it tells me I'm on the right path. It tells me I'm making good content. But a lot of times, like I was saying before, I'll begin to see myself as superior, right? I'll begin to see like, oh, I'm the shit, right? And Sadhguru said this best, right? He said, when you see yourself as superior, and obviously I'm paraphrasing here, when you see yourself as superior, right, your happiness comes from the failure of others, right? Because in order for you to be successful, others have to fail, right? And so whether this be an objective thing where others fail, it might just be relative to your own mind. So whether you see yourself making really good content in this egoic state where you believe you're a content creator, where you believe you're Cal, X, Y, and Z, you're like, oh, wow, I'm making such great content. I'm doing better than this person, this person. And maybe relative to that area, yes, maybe you are, right? But instead of taking that objective viewpoint, being like, okay, maybe I'm a little bit more ahead on the path than this other individual, and rather than dividing them, right, and it not necessarily generating happiness, you are taking that egoic state where you are like, oh, I'm doing better than this person in this single area. Therefore, overall, you're a better person, right? And you're the shit, right? Everyone wants to be you. Everyone wants to be friends with you. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you. And, it goes on and on and on and on. But what do you know? That only lasts for such a short amount of time. Why? Because like I said before, who you think you are is on a house of sticks, right? And that house of sticks isn't a solid foundation, right? But what the foundation of that foundation is your conscious awareness, right? Like I said before, that requires no beliefs. So when it comes up on social media, when you get whether it be you're feeling less than or more than, right? These emotions are still going to come up, but if you're aware of that foundation underneath the foundation of your identity, please ask questions in the comment section if this is getting a little, too much. But if you're aware of that foundation, you may feel less than or more than for a short amount of time, but you become more reserved, right? You begin to, I guess you could say, humble yourself in a way, right? But it's not necessarily like, no, I mean, maybe it is. I think, because like, if you start like in my instance, this is how it is currently for me, right? Like, I'll put up a video on YouTube and it'll do really, really, really well, right? And I'll be like, oh, great, man, I'm the shit, like I'm doing so good, right? Right? But then I'll remind myself through my conscious awareness, I'll be like, Cal, this is not who you truly are, right? Like this is a temporary, I guess you could say, journey in an illusion, right? Because I'm operating in identity, right? And we all have to operate in identity to some extent, right? That's just how we live our lives. Like we have to, right? But we have to be aware that we're whole and complete. We have to be aware of the objective reality, I guess you could say, in a sense, right? Of how all this shit, regardless of concepts, regardless of whatever label we place on it, is just according to us, right? It's not according to the universe, because according to the universe, none of this shit really exists. And when I say like it doesn't really exist, like take for instance this microphone, right? It has a function, and like these headphones, it has a function that we gave to it, right? But beyond that function that we ascribe to it, it's not inherent. Like I should probably describe this in a different way, just because it's getting a little bit weird. But a car is just a car, right? It has this function, right, that we use, right? But inherently, that car is not going to drive itself to the airport unless we drive it to the airport. So we ascribe things certain functions. We ascribe things with a certain meanings, right? Because we give meaning to things. We give meaning, and we put labels on things that really don't have any labels, that really don't have any meaning, right? And this is not to say to live a nihilistic lifestyle or to become a pessimistic about everything. No, it's just to simply see the neutrality of this moment. See that the labels, the constructs, the ideas in your head that you place onto reality are not true, right? And they're just beliefs. That's all they are, right? And of course, there's nothing wrong with these beliefs, right? But if you're able to see through them, you won't get caught in them, right? And so through that, you can reduce suffering. You can reduce feeling less than. You can reduce feeling more than, right? Even though feeling more than feels great, right? But after you're done feeling more than, you gotta feel less than, right? Like it's this like up and down cycle that like never ends. And of course, you can have like those, you know, middle, like, fuck, why am I? Of course, you can have those mixtures of ups and downs, right? You know, this steady pace, but and that's actually a good segue because I think if you have that foundation of your foundation, being conscious of how much you're thinking about yourself, how much or your identity, right? How it's not really a real thing. I think you can really develop a nice, steady, maintained state. So naturally, you can maintain this like neutral type of state. And of course, we're individuals of value judgments. We're individuals of sentience. We're individuals of feeling oppositional emotions, right? Of course, right? But when you have this conscious awareness of your identity, of you thinking about yourself constantly, you won't become infatuated with yourself and constantly, I guess you could say, feeling the need to compare yourself to others, right? And so those insecurities, like Tristan touched on, you won't feel the need to compare yourself to others in such a tight and like I guess you could say serious and like, yeah, really just a serious way that carries a lot of emotion and like has a strong dictate on how you operate, how you're feeling, what emotions you're going through, how you're responding to things, right? Because like we touched on in the last episode, episode 41, I believe, with my cousin, you're able to, I guess, if you're pursuing a goal or if you're pursuing a standard, you can view certain situations and you can view certain matters without becoming incredibly attached to them, right? And so you can compare yourself to yourself, right? And lightly to others without, in that specific area, without wholly feeling more than or less than, right? You can take this objective, neutral approach and being like, yeah, my biceps could be bigger, but even though they could be bigger, that doesn't mean they have to be bigger, right? Or that because they're not bigger, I am a bad person, or I'm a person that's less than, that has no significance, or whatever, right? So I know I'm kind of going on this little tangent, and I know I'm going on this little area, but the big message that I'm trying to relay here, and that I'm trying to advocate for, is really just being careful when you're really thinking about yourself, right? Because although it may not seem like tangibly like a very damaging thing, it actually, in my opinion, is one of the most damaging things in your life, right? Or I should say, potentially has the ability to damage your life the most, right? Because if you are constantly thinking about yourself, right, you're in this autopilot mind where you're not able to be aware of your thoughts, right? Where you're not necessarily, I guess you could say, taking a step back and realizing how your attention is just constantly fueling into your thoughts, right? And just like thoughts on thoughts on thoughts on thoughts, right? And so you're going into this like up and down cycle of comparing, making judgments, right, about good and bad, who you are, what you think you are, right? How do I get better? Putting others down, putting yourself up, or like, just this different types of oppositional stances. I think with this, if you have this conscious awareness, right, if you're constantly flowing around and I guess you could say, so your mind is in this autopilot state, right, of continually thinking about yourself, right? And over time, you're developing this as a habit, you're developing this as a behavior, and it's just like a nonstop type of thing. I think a lot of times, if this happens, right, and we're not, and I think this is where, unfortunately, I hate to say it, a significant portion of humanity is, and and like I was saying before, it's it's a thing that can damage your life most, and what makes it so deadly is because, I guess you could, not deadly, but like what makes it so severe is the fact that we can't see it, right? You can only really feel it, right? And you can really only be aware of it. And since we can't necessarily see it tangibly, for a lot of people, for them to take a step back and go within themselves, and I guess not necessarily go against their mind, but observe their mind and change the software of how they operate, meaning the habits, the behaviors of like where their attention goes, how it's being utilized, is very, very hard to do. And I know it was for me, and luckily for me, I was able to be in an environment where I was able to dive within myself through meditation, through just self-inquiry, just like really just thinking about thinking, right? Or just being aware of my thoughts, right? And just how it's dictating my life. Since it's not something you can see, right? It's so severe, right? And individuals a lot of times will mistake the content for their life to be the problem that is essentially causing all of their problems, right? And so without a doubt, I'm sure to some extent their environment or whatever situation they're in definitely plays a role, 100%. But a lot of times the underlying, I guess you could say, the underlying factors behind that are a lot of times how they're thinking about the matter, right? How they're responding to the matter, right? Like what types of habits and behaviors do they have within them that are evoking certain emotions, evoking certain feelings, evoking a certain response. And I think a lot of times, since people, like I was saying before, can't see that, that's just like, it's not even on their radar. Like they don't even think about it. And through that, they begin to go into this autopilot mind and just think based on that autopilot mind. And of course they might seek help. They might seek, this is very situational, of course, but a lot of times they'll continue to think about the matter and really dive into their identity and go either like stoop themselves up or stoop themselves down low. And I think they're not able to respond in a conscious manner, right? And they really do respond in an unconscious manner. So there's nothing wrong with your identity. There's nothing wrong with thinking about yourself. But unfortunately, like at least on this side of the world, within the Western side of the world, I think a lot of people, especially living in an individualistic culture, definitely, we think about ourselves more than anyone else, right? And so through this, we begin to stop thinking about others. We begin to stop really, I guess you could say, being present, right? Analyzing maybe the consequences of thinking about ourselves, right? And just we become a servant for ourselves, right? And of course, it's okay to be selfish at times, right? If you need to take time for self-care, self-love, right? And just like meditate or, go on a walk, exercise, eat healthy, like making these different types of choices, getting out of a bad relationship, of course, right? But when it comes down to thinking about your self-image constantly and really putting yourself up above others, down below, or being inferior, right? Or just continually obsessing about your self-image and like just your different types of standards and goals without taking a step back and seeing how those standards and goals are truly an illusion, I think you're going to be stuck in a big trap, right? And so with all that being said, the simple message of this video, I know I said a lot of things here, and I know, sometimes I can go on like little tangents that I don't break down the best, right, in terms of language, how I communicate. So please question what I'm saying. Please take a step back and analyze what I'm saying and just think about it. Don't come to any conclusions right away. Do some more research. Do your own research, right? And try and find individuals that, I guess, if I didn't break it down clearly for you, try to find individuals within this area that do break it down more clearly, because I feel as though what I'm communicating right now is one of the gems to life, and it has transformed my life. And I will never, I guess you could say, forget it. And yeah, I think that's a great place to wrap up episode number 40. I think it's 43 or 42, whatever. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. As always, it has been your boy, Conscious Cal. Make sure you go check out the Jason Scolora show on YouTube. The other host, hit up Cole Minzy, the other host of the show. And yeah, make sure you guys just be aware of your identity. Of course, you have to operate in it and use it in your life, but just be aware of the of who you really are beyond your thoughts. That's all I got, guys. So with all that being said, love yourself because I love you, and we are clocking out, people. Peace.